Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to This Week in Mormons. I'm Jeff Openshaw, your founder, and on the other end of the microphone over there is Haley Smith. I was going to let you.
Hi.
I was going to see if you take the cue and
Oh,
jump in. But it's me.
it's me, Haley Smith.
You know her from the Once I Was films,
Yes.
all sorts of other things. Haley, it's good to have you with us again.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
How you been? We last talked to you, I think, sometime before the holidays,
Okay.
probably ish or something like that. You're like, okay, I
Yeah.
believe you. Sure,
No.
sure. It was
Yes.
then. It was then.
Yes, that
Yes,
was it. I
yes.
know. Let's see. What have I been doing? Just hunkering down. I got a little touch of the COVID.
Just some wee COVID.
Just a wee bit of COVID. I did a Hooked on Phonics commercial.
I'm sorry, what?
I know. Hooked on Phonics is making a comeback.
I was about to say that's still a thing. It exists.
That's
Are
what
people
I
still?
said when I got the commercial. But it hasn't come out yet.
How was the audition process for the Hooked on Phonics commercial? How many callbacks were there? I'm very curious about this.
Uh, well, I don't know. It was a group of people I'd worked with before, so
Okay. Well,
I auditioned.
there's nothing wrong with that. They wrote it with you in
Yes.
mind. That's okay. That's
No,
okay.
yeah, it was a really they had a really fun angle, but yeah, could not believe that Hooked on Phonics. I was like, wait, wasn't that? It's like been a good 20 years or
A
30 years
while.
since I've heard anything about Hooked on Phonics.
Now,
So yeah,
given I know obviously your career has not only spanned the Latter-day Saint realm, but is Hooked on Phonics an LDS connection at all? Is that
I
is
don't
that part
think
of a realm? Okay.
so. I don't think so. This particular like production company has a lot of clients,
Okay.
not just in Utah. So um, they really liked their pitch, and so yeah.
Hooked on Phonics is
Mhm.
I'm looking. They've got a Wikipedia entry as well. They should. They're distributed by Simon and Schuster. I mean, that's the real deal here.
Yeah.
They started in 1987. They have a mobile app. Oh my god.
It started in 1987. Okay, I knew it was like I was hearing about it when I was a teen, but
Yeah. I mean, you and I think are
yeah,
close to the same age, I imagine. And
contemporaries. Yes.
yes, we're contemporaries. I think we both did we both graduate high school in the 90s?
Yes. Right in the middle.
You were in the middle, so you might be a little bit ahead of me. But yes,
Yeah.
I was at the tail end of it right there. But yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's fun. I can't wait
I
to see that
know.
commercial
Same.
on the broadcast television I don't watch. Where will I see this? Is this going to be
Probably YouTube.
probably YouTube?
Yeah.
I'm going to start searching a lot for Hooked on Phonics, so that way when I'm watching YouTube, the algorithm will serve up a relevant ad. That way I want to capture that.
Oh, yeah. That's a good idea. I should do that too.
My YouTube ads are a bizarre mix right now. I see it. So I do. I mean, I work in marketing and advertising for on a government contract for recruiting for a certain government agency.
Mhm.
And now because I spend so much of my time like looking for stuff and things, I see the ads now in my personal life. Like I'm scrolling on my phone and I'm like, there's that one we approved the other week.
Yep.
There it is in the wild. It's always a weird feeling when something you did for work is just like on the internet there with all its tracking links ready to go.
Yeah.
It's a
Tell me
strange
about
feeling.
it.
Says the man who's been producing podcasts for over 12 years. But yeah. Anyway. Oh, well, good. I'm glad stuff's going okay. I'm glad the week COVID didn't last too long.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I was able to keep my college daughter home for an extra week. So you'd think that I planted it on her, but I didn't.
oh, you wanted this.
I know. I was like, oh, you have to stay an extra week and snuggle with me and watch TV. Okay.
I hope I get to that point. Meanwhile, I'm like, oh,
How many years?
today's President's Day, and that means I don't have to work, and my kids aren't in school, and we're all together all day. And I love them very much. But oh, they're fun. Well, we've
Yeah.
got a lot of last week, of course, we had news. We talked a lot about Brad Wilcox last week. Thanks to those of you who tuned in to that one. We appreciated your feedback. And if you haven't listened to the show, please do. I'm hoping you're aware of the Brad Wilcox brouhaha. If you're not, please go listen to that show. Lots gone down there. It seems like things have quieted down a little bit on the Brad Wilcox front. We haven't heard much more from him.
Mhm.
I did have one small follow-up to the
Okay.
Brad Wilcox situation. So since we recorded the episode last week, one more thing had happened. BYU's Black Student Union, who This was awesome. They wore all black, and they even
Uh-huh.
took a picture in front of the Brigham Young statue. Right there in the main quad.
Yeah.
It looked like a Black Panthers photo in front of Brigham Young's
Oh, in
statue,
front of the
which was
statue. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
which was just kind of awesome. But
Yeah.
their purpose was they went to Brad Wilcox's class
Mhm.
and they wanted to like talk with him. They were not. This was
Yeah.
not like a violent rushing of torches and pitchforks or
Of
anything like that.
course. That's
Trying to go
totally
get Brad
fair.
Wilcox.
Yeah.
So they went to the Jesse Knight building, and
Mhm.
they said when we got there, we were met with security outside the classroom door. Yes, the BYU gave Brad Wilcox security detail, and if you've seen pictures of these security guys, they look like they fell out of a Vivint ad. It's
Oh.
just brotastic, and they're great people. And but they're just it looks like the most random security you'd ever see, because it's not like uniformed people. It's just like some
Oh.
guys just in like black t-shirts with their phones just standing there like, yeah, we're
Oh.
gonna we're gonna keep this legit.
Okay.
um Anyways,
Wow.
so they showed up. They were not allowed to go in and sit down. They said that
Oh.
they were trying to force their way in, which nothing happened.
It
But they did
was
say
while he was doing class, or they're waiting for class to be over, like.
that part is murky to me, because it says they wanted to go in there and like sit down and have a sort of a dialogue. But obviously, if it's going
Yeah.
into a classroom, like I don't think you need to disrupt a class if there's one
Yeah.
going on in the moment. They said they were waiting calmly outside the door. We didn't have any disturbance. In the video, Bird says that they were able to meet with Wilcox briefly after his class ended. So
Okay.
that's fair. Don't disrupt the class. That you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But their rep said Brad Wilcox didn't want to have an extended conversation then and there, but they could talk in the future, which
Mhm.
is good.
Yeah.
Take the time. Take the time
Well, yeah, it's a
and listen and learn.
conversation that needs to continue to happen. Like, it's not a conversation that you just go, "Oh, well, that came up again. Well, push it back under the rug." This needs to be an ongoing conversation for sure. So
Yeah.
that's good.
Like we said, I think credit to Brad Wilcox. I think in many ways he's a product of our time and certain
Mhm.
cultural things and this and that. But and what we said last week, he should apologize for not just for what if something he said offended somebody, but like actually
Mhm.
said no, this content was like bad. I think he's been receptive to that. I don't think Brad Wilcox has a malicious bone in his body or anything
Yes.
like that. I think
No,
he's
he
and I think
strikes me
he's
as a very good person, a very loving, well-meaning person. Yeah, it's
yeah, and he strikes me as someone who wants to learn from
yeah.
his mistakes and do better. And so
Yeah.
I hope he does. And I hope it'll be
Yeah.
a call to all of us to
Yeah.
likewise do better if we're not doing better. So that was our last update. That might wind up being the last update on Brad Wilcox front, unless like something crazy happens and the church releases him from the young men's like hastily reorganizes the young men's presidency and conference. But they were like barely put in there, so I don't think that's going to happen
Yeah, probably
necessarily.
not.
That would be pretty obvious. I can't believe conference is only like 5 weeks away now. Jeez,
I know, that's
it's already
true. That means
it's already
spring is coming. That's fine. I'll allow
that's what they tell me. We'll see. We'll see. So that went down.
Yeah.
We have a lot of other BYU stuff though this week. I guess we could get into some of that. Some of it's a little
Okay.
bit older
Okay.
than other weeks, but we haven't talked about it because last week was a lot of
Yeah.
Wilcox. Week before that, we had our interview with Tyler the Fever.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Yeah, this week I asked a friend, I was like, "Hey, whatever happened with that Title IX suit?" And I heard, "Oh, it got dismissed." I didn't and I hadn't known that. So
and what
just
was the
learned about
context?
that.
And what was the context on this one? It was that I believe the argument was that because this was the Department of Education was investigating BYU for Title IX violations, particularly that they allegedly were not treating LGBTQ
Mhm.
students the same
Yeah,
way. Like they
that
were
they were
not.
being discriminated
Yes.
against. And apparently the complaint was filed last March, but BYU wasn't aware of it until October when they were given notice that the case was
Huh.
opened.
So they go that long without even telling them what's going on.
Yeah, but I guess it was dismissed because they did assert, their religious exemption. Um, so, that was they're able to close the case because BYU has religious exemption that applies to this issue. So, yeah. I
That
and
seems
I
pretty cut and dry.
Yeah.
I didn't think anything was gonna happen with this specifically because of the religious exemptions to Title IX. Like, what was they gonna do? Just say, "No, you don't have that anymore"?
Well, and it did mention that there are several institutions that have these religious exemptions,
Mhm.
which kind of made me curious about like just how many educational institutions are exempt from um Title IX requirements.
And you can read, there's a lengthy letter the Department of Education actually sent over. And they say very clearly, we reaffirm that the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution protects the autonomy of religious institutions, including BYU, to be free from government involvement in the teaching or practice of religion, and from excessive entanglement in their religious affairs. Further, federal law prohibits the government from imposing any substantial burden on our religious free exercise. It is not the least restrictive means of meeting a compelling government interest. So that's the gist right there. I mean, then they say Title IX is designed to eliminate, with certain exceptions, discrimination on the basis of sex in any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. But anyways, they basically say, BYU's got its own definition of things. Title IX does not apply discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity. And because BYU, as you said, Haley, has the religious exemption. We can
Mhm.
link to this full version if you want here. There's a lengthy back and forth here of letters from the church and back and this and that and everything. But
Yeah.
that's some of the. I guess this is the original one that they sent to them. Wow. Oh boy, they actually send them the family proclamation. BYU sent
Huh.
as Exhibit 4 in its in its package. Like I don't know if it's like
Yeah,
an
I mean,
amicus
I
brief.
think it would be interesting to go on to campus and talk to the students and see what they think about the situation. Because
I just like that they sent. No, you know what we're going to do, guys? We're going to send them the family proclamation. That is our defense. And apparently it was. Apparently it worked.
it's an official proclamation.
It is official, but not yet official Declaration 3 in the Doctrine and Covenants, as many people
Hmm.
think, assume. Another thing's going down has gone down here at BYU in recent weeks. So you've probably seen this. I can't believe we haven't talked about it. I think the sisters might have spoken about it a little bit, but basically the idea is the church educational system announced many weeks ago now that all employees who are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints will be required to hold and be worthy to hold a current temple recommend. That one's very curious to me because they're basically
Mhm.
saying like it's not enough to have the temple recommend. If you have a temple recommend and you like have some issues, but it's not to the level your temple recommend will be taken away, but your bishop is saying like you're not worthy to go to the temple right now, but I'm not taking your recommend away. Sorry, I get lost in words, but I think it's funny. You have to be
Yeah.
required to hold and be worthy to hold the recommend. Church
Yeah.
members already working at CES institutions will be invited to adopt this standard voluntarily. So it applies to all new employees.
But not current employees? The
That
current
there,
ones
if
are
you're already
just
there, you are invited
you're
to adopt.
invited.
It's an invitation, like a lot of things. We invite you.
Okay.
We invite
So,
you to,
okay, so in the past, church employees have had to have ecclesiastical endorsements,
and that's been the
right?
deal. If you're a CES employee, you had to have an ecclesiastical endorsement to hold a
Okay.
job,
And I only
which is
remember like my ecclesiastical endorsement from my bishop when I was going to BYU. But what kind of things did they, was it an interview or where they ask, or is it just like the bishop signing it and saying, yeah, no, they're good.
it's a mix. I mean, if you remember a lot of the parts of an ecclesiastical endorsement could parallel
Yeah, like it's similar, I would
a temple
imagine.
recommended in many, many ways. I'm trying to bring up if I can find some of the actual questions. Okay, come on, what is it? No, I don't want to issue one. Come on, LCR. Just trying to find the wording, but basically that's the gist of it. I mean, are you good? You support stuff. I mean, I
Yeah.
knew many BYU students who flatly lied about things because they didn't want to
Yeah.
get because you didn't want kicked out of school
Well,
because you
yeah,
needed
and
your
that's the thing
ecclesiastical
here. It's
endorsement.
like if you have your livelihood on the line,
Yeah.
are you maybe a little bit more like inclined to lie a little bit? I don't know. That's would be a concern, I would think.
I could totally see that being the case. I mean, it's hard because when your ability to attend your university is contingent upon you having that endorsement,
Yeah.
there's a little bit of bishop roulette there. I mean,
Yeah.
and I'm not condoning,
Oh,
breaking
yeah.
the commandments, and I'm not even getting on BYU's case for requiring an ecclesiastical endorsement.
Right.
They have their standards, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But you can run into this little issue where, like, what if you, heaven forbid, who knows what it is? I don't want to be too graphic here, but what
Yeah.
if you're like a guy, you go out with a girl, and you feel her up or something,
Yeah.
right? And I think for different individuals and different leaders, that could merit very different consequences and reactions. And you could very
Uh-huh.
well have one bishop who might be like, "All right, well, we don't want to do that. Let's
Mhm.
try to be better. Let's work harder. And, I'm here to help you if you need things. Let's work through this." You could have another who'd be like, "You have dishonored your
Yep.
priesthood, and I am not going to be able to issue this to you." And then you're like,
Mhm.
"Cool. Can I still go to school?" And they're like, "I don't know. You might have to be on probation or things like
Yeah.
that." And that can be the hard thing because you just, it's not uniform across who the leaders are, even though the questions are basically the same thing. There's the academic policy, the dress and grooming standards, the residential standards, honor
Right.
code, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Um,
So
so
yeah.
that's the fun thing. So that's the ecclesiastical endorsement. I think this takes it to a new level though, with it
Well, that's
being,
what I mean. Like it's your like kind of private time with your spiritual leader, but you're also thinking, I gotta keep my job or I need to get this job or whatever. I don't know. It seems to be a conflict of interest there.
I think a little bit. I mean, ecclesiastical endorsements were a little bit less formal in that sense. I mean,
Yeah.
the bishop, it's kind of just meeting with your bishop, syncing up, seeing how you're doing, and making sure everything's okay. But a temple recommend's highly formal, and that literally means like, and it's multi-layered too. It means like
Multi-layered. Yeah.
have your job. You have to pass the whatever 14 odd questions with your bishop,
Uh-huh.
and then also with a member of a stake presidency. Um,
Uh-huh.
we're hoping everyone's in good standing, and you can do that, of course. But it also
Yeah.
makes your it's kind of goofy because it's like what if you struggle to pay tithing if that's your business, but if tithing's a thing for you, you could probably have an ecclesiastical endorsement and not be a full tithe payer, but you can't have a temple recommend if you're not a full tithe payer.
Right.
That's just an example. That's the one I think is the funniest because BYU is paying your salary and then you have to give 10% of it back to the church to continue being employed by BYU.
You're like, can you just
It's a,
give me a raise to cover that?
or you're like, can you just like cut this out at the gross level so I don't have to waste my time with it? Just shave it
Right.
off the top.
Yeah, just take it off with yeah, health
Just take it.
insurance, taxes,
That way it
tithing.
actually lowers my taxable income up front
Yes.
instead of later on. Um, yeah, and there's an article over at By Common Consent by John S. who kind of talks about a little of this. Like he says, that one big issue, of course, it creates a transactional employment relationship
Yeah.
and what should be an opportunity for counseling and spiritual growth. That's the issue I'd worry about too. Because if you have sins that are at the level of you could not have a temple recommend and you need to work through some stuff, good for you for seeking guidance and good for you for wanting to work through those things. But if it means you lose your temple recommend and you're a CES employee, then like,
Yeah. Well,
are
and
you
it,
going to,
it really does give that leader, that bishop, that so much power over people, over, you know, I don't know. So, which I guess it's just depends on who you have, right? Like, you want to believe that everyone is good and well intentioned and wants the best for you. But I'm sure there's been situations and cases where people do kind of, you know, that power. I don't know. I, I don't know. I can't imagine. It would be very difficult to be in that position. I wouldn't want that job. But
no, it's tough. I don't know. That's tough. I mean, and let alone, and when you're working for the church, there's already the whole like consecration idea that
yeah.
from what I understand, jobs vary, I'm sure, but in most of the people I've talked to who are employed by the church, and that's the church overall. Okay, CES is a little subset. So this specifically applies to CES, but
Mhm.
obviously, if you are working for the church, even in the IT department, you have to have a temple recommend. I mean, that's the
Mhm.
whole big church apparatus, and I feel like this is just kind of extending that
Yeah.
more formally into the BYU realm. If you're a member of the church and if you're coming on as a new employee, boy, are those people kicking themselves who didn't manage to get that little offer a year ago,
I
right?
know.
The ones who really want to mess around and not to keep.
Well, I know because if they tell current employees that they're only invited, and we know how that goes. The words invite and urge are we're like, oh, I don't have to do that.
Well, I mean, it's funny. Like I had some poli sci. I remember I had one poli sci professor. I think she was just adjunct, but I knew that she was a member of the church, but I knew that offline, I think she like kind of like casually would have coffee and stuff here and there and wasn't,
Uh-huh.
I don't believe she was endowed or things like that. She was
Mhm.
kind of frank about it more during office hours. And like, okay, that's her deal. I valued very much her capabilities as an instructor and her field
Mhm.
of expertise and the things I learned from her classes, and those were good. So things like that are interesting to me because it's this big like purity statement about
Mhm.
like, okay, would this individual no longer be worthy to share her knowledge with learning minds? And
Mhm.
people might come at me for saying that and say, look, it's the church, it's BYU, it's the Lord's
Mhm.
University. You want to shore things up. I know this kind of
Yeah.
follows along with Elder Holland's remarks last summer,
Mhm.
right? We need to protect BYU and what it stands for. And
Mhm.
this seems to be just a further extension of that.
Well, kind of along similar lines, there was a BYU professor that was fired, and she believes it was because of her advocacy for LGBTQ um, students, individuals. So I thought that was interesting because I think that would put a lot of people in kind of an uncomfortable position if they're worried. another reason to, to worry about their job if they're just, I don't know. I don't know to what level she was like being outspoken about her personal beliefs, but that's, I think, concerning that she feels that it cost her her job.
Yeah, and it's funny because she was an adjunct professor, which is when you're an adjunct, it's a very different situation for you. It's almost like you're kind of an ad hoc. You're not like a you're not a substitute, but
Yeah.
you are not a tenured part of
Right.
the team, right?
Right.
And
Right.
even though she spent 28 years
That's a long
working
time.
at school, that's a long time to put up with being an adjunct professor. For goodness sake, I would be like, I mean, adjuncts get the rough end of a lot of things. If you're tenured, you've got even at BYU, you have certain protections if you're
Yeah.
tenured. Um, the curious thing is, for one thing, she can only guess that these were her views. This is
Right.
by the professor's name is Sue Bergen. She can only guess because Utah is an employment at will state, or what's known as a right to work state, which
Hmm.
means you can be fired and without cause, and you don't have to know why,
Hmm.
and you have no recourse really. And so, even though BYU is a private school, that part of things applies, and you can be fired, and they'll just say sorry, and you can say,
Hmm.
"What did I do?" And they'll be like, "Doesn't matter," and they may
Hmm.
never tell you. But
Yeah.
what she does know is that an administrator above her supervisor made the call, and her department chair was instructed to carry it out. And the curious thing about this is that department chairs are usually the ones who make the calls on employees. So she thinks someone even higher up at the school had an issue with something she might have shared online or in the classroom. Basically, somebody
Hmm.
higher up made a call and pushed it down and told somebody to get rid of her. Is once again her
Yeah.
assumption. She'll probably never
Right.
know. That's the thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if that's the case. I think that's very unfortunate. I mean, it says she would wear a rainbow pin to let people know she was a safe person. She would mention she has two gay brothers. I mean, it sounds like pretty, harmless. Just, being a really good, decent, safe person. And yeah, I think we need more people like that at BYU, not less. So
Especially because, and of course, BYU would not comment on any particulars of it. They just said,
yeah,
you're always in a semester long contract and it could be renewed for many different reasons. Carrie Jenkins,
yeah.
who we're convinced might actually be a real person. I've wondered if she's just a bot that issues press releases because she seems not to have much of a presence other than I don't want Carrie Jenkins' job, but yeah, BYU, of course, like they're not going to comment on this. Why would they? They're not going to get into a mix of it.
No,
There's nothing
they
they're
don't
going to do
have
here.
to. Yeah,
No, not at all.
yeah.
It'll be curious to see what happens with this. I mean, she asserts she's a faithful member of the church, and it doesn't
Hmm.
seem. I don't know anyone who knows her. I'd love to know from our listeners if any of you guys know
Hmm.
Professor Bergen or know anyone who does. I'd be curious about the experiences with her. But if she was truly
Yeah,
teaching what the church teaches and not going beyond that and not
yeah.
saying anything out of turn, then that's troubling.
And interesting too in the Tribune article, it mentions that her dad was a psychology professor at BYU and championed the idea that homosexuals could make themselves straight through
Oh, good.
self-discipline. And then he apologized for that, but I mean, apparently he had two gay sons, so I'm sure that helped to change his stance.
One
Um,
would hope.
but that's, yeah, so
It took us
interesting.
a long time to even denounce conversion therapy as a church.
Hmm.
Like a shockingly long time. I'm glad we have,
Hmm.
but that's yeah, product of a different age. Uh,
Yeah.
Another BYU thing here, folks. This is a curious one that came out. If you listened last week, Jared and I were talking about like, oh, you didn't want near the end, like you don't want to talk about that one thing, and he's like, oh no, it's all good. So I'm taking it right now, Jared.
Okay.
We were been running very long on that episode because of Brother Wilcox.
Of course.
So this is a press release from the American Speech Language Hearing Association, or ASHA. ASHA,
Hmm.
I'm assuming it's ASHA. It's a statement on Brigham Young University administration decision to deny speech services for transgender clients. So what we're talking about here is this is an organization, an association, professional association for speech therapists, speech pathologists, etc. And most people in many professions are members of associations and usually abide by a certain code of ethics pertaining to that. Part of it can be part of being certified for your position. And the issue here is they are alleging that BYU has updated its standards that now run contrary to the code of ethics of these professionals that might work for BYU. So the specifics of it here are the ASHA. They say they recognize that gender affirming voice and communication services for transgender and gender diverse populations within the speech. They believe in doing that's part of being a speech pathologist is helping people that might be transitioning genders. Okay, they provide vital clinical services to genders diverse populations who may have voice or other speech language disorders unrelated to their gender. That's one part, as well as services to individuals whose voices do not reflect their gender. Transgender individuals who attempt to modify their voice without a trained speech language pathologist risk permanent damage to their vocal
I
cords.
thought that was so interesting. I
Yeah,
had never really thought about that aspect of transitioning, of needing to work with a speech therapist, but it totally makes
yeah.
sense.
And
That's
so basically saying like without appropriate services, you're at an increased health. You just have a higher risk of mental health challenges, emotional health challenges, and so their job is to ensure treatment for all individuals in need of speech, language, hearing, and other related services, including transgender individuals, is consistent with their code of ethics. So sorry to lay some groundwork there. The
yeah.
issue they have here is that their code of ethics says individuals shall not discriminate in the delivery of professional services or in the conduct of research and scholarly activities on the basis of race, ethnicity, sex, gender identity or gender expression, sexual orientation, age, religion, national origin, disability, culture, language, or dialect.
Mhm.
The issue with BYU is, of course, BYU is just not allowing their certified speech language pathologists to provide those sorts of services to transgender clients, which makes sense from a church perspective because while the church admits, if you read handbook section 38, which I actually love that the ASHA people actually dug up the handbook and quoted the handbook about this, but they say, as it says in the handbook, transgender individuals face complex challenges. Members and non-members who identify as transgender and their family and friends should be treated with sensitivity, kindness, compassion, and an abundance of Christ-like love. And it goes on to say some children, youth, and adults are prescribed hormone therapy by a licensed medical profession to ease gender dysphoria or reduce suicidal thoughts. Um,
Mm.
they're pointing this out, and then they omit some of the other parts in that section. Basically, the church is saying be compassionate to transgender individuals, but at the same time, the church has stressed that transgender individuals looking to change their sex could face church discipline. That's part of what's in section 38.
Mhm.
Section 38 of the handbook stresses that you can receive priesthood blessings, but you can only do it based on your gender at birth. So if you are a transgender woman, I guess you could still get the priesthood because biologically you are a man, that's your sex at
Right.
birth. Um, so there's some thorny stuff here. I think this is just a really fascinating area in general, where they're basically saying BYU, you are like not doing this, and also they say
You're
for the university to take action that bans them from doing this, the transgender client's protected health information would have been provided to the BYU administration to do so, which is a violation of the HIPAA privacy rule as
right.
well.
So
So
it
they're
is a
saying,
major call out by
yeah,
Asha. Is it Asha? Asha?
I don't know who.
Asha?
This is the first time they've ever been in the news. So either
Really?
way, no, I don't know,
No,
but
I know. Hey, it's I'm learning about them.
The sad thing is my wife got her degree in speech pathology, so she probably is
Do
aware
you
of
know
this
what?
association.
My sister-in-law is a speech therapist, so I'm going to have to ask her about
She
that.
probably knows who they are.
Yeah. I
So
would
I don't know. This is
probably.
this is a really curious area. Obviously, I don't understand a lot of the ins and outs of the code of ethics. If you're a speech pathologist,
Mhm.
um, I understand BYU's position, feeling like they're sort of encouraging what would err on the side of I don't know, troublesome behavior from a gospel perspective, from a BYU perspective, basically encouraging those who are transitioning to further that experience. So I kind of get both cases here. I just don't know what the appropriate solution would be. Like it's hard to tell BYU, well, you need to provide the services. I mean, legally they probably should, but
Yeah. I don't
I don't
know.
know.
It
What do you think?
seems like probably someone who's considering, transitioning, they're not going to be like, "Oh, well, now I can't get speech. Well, I guess I won't do it anymore." I don't know. But yeah, it's it's a it's a tricky position. I don't know. I
They
think
also remind BYU that their master's program is accredited by the Council on Academic Accreditation in Audiology and Speech Language Pathology. Um, I think they're basically kind of like saying, like, your accreditation in these programs could potentially be at risk because
right.
you're violating some of these ethical standards. I'm just curious if this was published on February 11th. I want to track this and see if anything happens. This isn't the kind of thing that's going to make
Yeah.
the news. I mean, obviously, this is just a press release. I haven't seen this picked up by any
Well, and
any of the.
is that like a really is that a core master's program for BYU, the
I
speech
don't know.
language? I don't
People
know.
I know who get masters in speech language or pathology, all the ones I've known might have gotten their undergrads at BYU, but did not go there for grad school. They all
Mm,
went to like Northwestern or other places that have more notable programs, but I
mhm.
don't know how BYU's
Yeah.
graduate program ranks on that front.
No, that is interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna ask my sister-in-law, who
We'll have
is
to
a
follow up on that.
speech, yeah, pathologist, but also not LDS. She's Catholic, so
Oh, well,
it'd
what's
be
she gonna
interesting
care?
to get
I
her.
mean, I would be curious for her take because maybe
Yeah,
like how is it for I don't know Notre Dame or some other school?
yeah,
Like are they in a similar boat? I'm always
yeah.
curious to compare BYU's the things BYU works through in terms of
Mm.
discrimination suits and things like that, along with other religious universities which face similar issues. We just don't talk about them as much because we're in our little LDS bubble, right? I'm
Again,
curious.
I do not want to be on the faculty or PR team. BYU.
BYU. You know, every time I think I should just go live in Provo again, I
You
think
read the news.
I read the news and then I look at Utah's real estate, which has gotten absurd, and
And then
that's that's another issue actually that
oh, yeah.
if I can digress for a second, or
Please.
maybe obviously we all know globally the economy everything's pretty wobbly right now. I mean
Uh-huh.
it's difficult to come out of a near standstill of an economy that started back in March 2022, and a lot of other pieces have to come back together again. So
Yeah.
one, I hope people can remember that like this isn't all falling on politicians' shoulders. It's just that everything got crazy nearly 2 years ago, and it
Right.
takes a lot of time for things to normalize again. But still, even with that, there's heavy demand on a lot of things that we don't have enough of, and the housing market, of course, has been
Ugh.
all over the place.
Mhm.
I don't know. Ugh. I mean, come on, Haley. You've probably seen your beautiful Colorado home quintuple in value. The Colorado market was hot even before COVID. Uh, but
But it has no sign of ever, like, it just is
stopping.
gonna go up and up and up and up,
Yeah.
and, we're like, "Oh, when our kids, all graduate, we'll move out of the suburbs, buy something else," and we're like, "Wait, if you sell your house, great, but you can't get back in anywhere." Like,
Not unless you want to move down to Pueblo
I
or somewhere like
guess.
that.
I don't
Right.
even know where you could go.
And
You're
that's the
s
thing. It's looking at Zillow right now is extremely depressing because you look at like random markets you wouldn't think would even matter as
Yes.
much, so quote unquote flyover country, and you're like, say what now? Like
Yeah.
why are like the median prices in Kansas City suburbs up to like $650,000?
Yeah.
Like these were $300,000 a couple years ago.
You know where is not super inflated? Ohio, apparently. I don't
Columbus
know.
is still pretty bad though, I think, but Columbus
Well,
is cool.
yeah, my brother-in-law and sister-in-law out there, their house, like, surprisingly has barely gone up at all in, like, 3 years. And I'm like, "Why are you in this just pocket of Ohio?"
I
I don't
have to
know.
imagine. I know a lot of the hipsters have come to like Buffalo and Detroit, because you can buy houses there for like $40,000. I imagine that's some hardcore Rust Belt that's probably still doing okay.
Detroit.
My,
Nice.
my point of saying any of this is I saw this on
Yes.
a thread this week in a discussion board. Affordability should be an issue for a lot of us, and Utah's housing market has been blisteringly hot for the
Yes.
past while, and it's gotten significantly worse during the pandemic. Uh, Utah for a long time. I mean, as a Californian, right? I knew plenty of people who are still able to do it because California's market's insane. But you
Mhm.
cash out in California, build yourself that beautiful McMansion in Highland, live that dream. It's this is the stuff, and you can still pull it off
Yeah.
because your crappy post-war bungalow in California still sells for $1.2 million, even though
Yes.
it has no business doing so. But I wonder how much the church thinks about this. We like, especially in Utah politics, where the church weighed in on something a couple of years ago when they were looking at removing the Zion curtain, which is the divider that means you can't see where alcohol is prepared at restaurants in Utah.
Oh,
And there was a bill to get rid of it, and the church actually made a video even about it and said like, no, 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 we should keep this. We should keep this. And I think there's so many interesting issues that the church chooses to get involved in, at least in Utah politics. I'm actually surprised we haven't done more to talk about the housing crisis and affordability, and like because they should care. I mean, Utah is one thing where people are still moving there, they're building temples like crazy,
oh, yeah.
but there are lots of places in the church that are contracting in the United States because people can't afford to live there anymore. I mentioned my native California, like the stake I grew up in was dissolved this time last year, and it was one of the
Right.
oldest stakes in the Southland, and that specific people just can't. No one's moving in, and everyone's moving farther. In California, they keep moving farther and farther east, but even that gets too pricey. They go to Arizona. Even that's getting pricey. And I know in
Yeah.
some senses it matters overall. Like, well, okay, the church membership will just migrate, but I just have to wonder how
Well,
much when they'll be concerned about Utah and its
yeah,
housing
and
issues.
especially if, they want us to get out of debt and reduce our debt, and
And have
everyone's
single family incomes with mothers being in the home and
yes,
those
and
sorts of things. And
everyone's just getting more and more debt, and I have a friend who's in Utah right now who's wanting to buy a house, but she's like, "I don't understand where all these people get all their money from." And I don't know. I did live in a certain town for a couple of years there, and I there was a certain level of white collar crime in my neighborhood.
you're not calling out Pleasant Grove, but you're calling out Pleasant Grove now. It was right around the doTERRA
You
campus.
already
Everyone knows it.
mentioned it. I Well, that's all I'll say. You already
I
named it.
I singled out Highland. Man, I'm
Yeah,
good.
Highland. I don't know. I That was a
Highland
long
is like a
time
step.
ago.
Highland is something of a step 40 in paradise, is how I see it. It's kind of like Daybreak, you know. It's where you go. It's where the action is.
Yeah,
I used to
I
Haley, I used to have
guess.
dreams about Daybreak. Back when Daybreak was being built, when I was finishing up my time at BYU, I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be awesome. And you look at how much houses cost there. I'm like, oh my gosh, Utah's great. It's so affordable. I could spend 350 grand and get a whole house. And now you look at Daybreak. I'm like, cool. So that's 1.5 million dollars in
Oh my
Daybreak. It's like
gosh.
what?
Oh, that's crazy.
Anyway, there's no
Yeah.
particular story here. I just
No, no,
I
for
wonder how much they think about. I know they're aware of it, but like,
yeah.
why does the church not take affordability of housing
Yeah.
under its wing? I mean, we're bothering to build nice condominiums in City Creek, right? Are
Yeah.
we bothering to care about affordable housing developments going in places? I know it's very granular, and like city planning, urban planning is not sexy, and it doesn't make a lot of headlines. But the church getting involved and saying like, "Hey, we kind of owe it to our brothers and sisters to make life affordable, and we're not telling you how to like pay people for their jobs or this or that, but
Yeah.
maybe a little bit more density could be useful. Maybe better transit could be a good thing.
Mm.
Maybe we could invest more in affordable housing." Just things like this. It's
Yeah.
interesting we don't talk about it.
No, that's yeah, I think it's definitely an issue. Everyone's going there.
Seriously, it's crazy right now. All right. Well, we've had a lot of BYU
Oh,
stuff.
yeah, should we get away from BYU?
Yeah, let's do something really nice
Okay.
and that's going to unite everybody. Talk about COVID. So
Oh, good old COVID.
last week, the church sent out a letter to
Mm.
leaders to be read. They didn't say if it was to be read. Updating COVID-19 guidelines. And then when you see
Mhm.
this headline, you're like, dude, what is happening? Like, what are they going to say at a church-wide level that's going to alter the very course of how we've been approaching the pandemic?
Mhm.
I was baffled by this letter because all it said is, they said, we're grateful. The Lord has heard our prayers about how to navigate the global 19 pandemic. Of course, as governments begin to modify the requirements for travel, masks, and other protective measures, we offer the following direction. We are now encouraging area presidencies and consultation with stake presidencies to determine on a local basis whether masks should be worn or other precautions should be observed in the various church meetings and activities. In doing so, local leaders should consider the guidance of local health and government officials and local customs and conditions. And then that's the first part. And then they make a point to say masks are still required in the temple, though, and
Temple.
we'll get to that in a second. But that first part, I was just confused because that's been the case all along. Like nowhere during this process has Salt Lake come out at a church level or a national level and said, "You're all wearing masks. You're all social." It's been like local decisions or lack thereof since day one, unless I'm missing something, right?
I mean, I guess at the most it would have been President Nelson urging, members to wear masks and get vaccinated,
Which they've done,
but
and
that was not
yeah,
an official, like statement or decree kind of thing. I don't know. I wonder, yeah, maybe because there has been a lot of controversy with that particular statement, and I don't know, there people actually leaving or losing their testimonies over that. I don't know, maybe this is a way of saying, you know what, just let your local leaders decide, it's
the
on them.
church is like it's an election year.
Yeah,
We need to do what the people want.
isn't that what
Um,
everybody's doing?
that's what's
Yeah.
happening. It is kind of baffling to me, both because I feel like this is non-guidance. Like this is the whole time my stake presidents, like I've been in all these meetings, and the stake presidency has been like, well, we've been consulting with the area presidency, and they've been giving us leeway to figure out what
Yeah.
to do based on our
Your
local
local
conditions
leaders, local government. Yeah.
and abiding by Virginia law and stuff like. And it's like, okay,
Mhm.
so I do not understand what is different about this, honestly, other than I don't know if the church is just trying to wash their hands and say you're getting nothing from Salt Lake anymore,
Exactly.
like you
Like
said, like that's it.
we don't it's not on us.
You figure this out now. We're not going to say anything more about it, which might be the case because I don't know
Yeah.
if you when they announced the general conference is coming up, and they want us to attend, and they announced the women's session is back again after a one conference hiatus with that one session, for
Oh,
everything.
right.
It was curious that in that announcement, the church said they'll still have limited number of tickets available. They'll allow in person attendance again. It'll be
I saw it. Yeah.
strictly limited, but nowhere in that release did they say in exercising an abundance of caution because of the pandemic. We want to open this up cautiously and thoughtfully, but allow people to come back. They said the only reason for it was because of all the construction on Temple Square, which is definitely
Mm.
affecting accessibility to the area. So I totally understand that. And where do you mingle in the hours in between sessions and all? None of that's available right now. But they made no mention of COVID, which I found very interesting as they did
It's
that. And
too
we've talked about that a bit more.
political. It's
So it's
hot topic.
it's kind of funny. So I don't. Yeah, it's just bizarre to me. The whole COVID thing right now is so strange to me because I feel like a month ago, we were talking about this before we hit the record button, but like a month ago, it was like, dude, Omicron is everywhere. This is hardcore, and we're hoping
Yeah, New York City was like back to March 16th,
everything was nuts.
2020. Yeah.
Everything was nuts again. We knew it would peak and crash again. Like that's kind of how
Mhm.
these things go, and that's so it's good that that's been happening. But if you still look at like hospitalization rates, it's not like this isn't like February of 2020 or anything. Like there are
Yeah,
still
or like the summer. It's just
yeah,
like
this isn't even as
we
good
are
as like June and
still
July of last
midwinter
year.
here.
Like it's still very present. And so I think everyone's just exhausted. It feels like we've all just like given up because if you look at the numbers, it's not like this thing crashed so hard we're out of the woods and we can just be cool yet. And I know longtime listeners are tired of me beating a dead horse here, but at the same time, I'm like, if you want to talk about like the numbers, like it just everyone's reactions right now do not add up to the where COVID currently stands. Thankfully, it's going down. Hopefully, things will stay good for a long time. But
Yeah.
I'm just so like confused because we've all just like collectively decided that's it. Whatever,
I don't
whatever.
know.
If my elderly neighbor dies, whatever, fine. That's it. Um,
Oh
so that's the one
man.
thing. The other curious one they had here, they talked about masks in temples, right? And the church has they reiterated the stance back in the summer when they mandated masks among temple patrons, and they kind of politely reminded everyone of that requirement, which
Mhm.
implied that people were not obeying the rules.
Mhm.
But the one thing I think is funny here, if you read the text, it says, for the time being, masks will still be required in temples where so many who attend are part of an elderly, more vulnerable population. That's one clause.
Mhm.
And where our desire to keep temples open and to have as many as possible participate. And
Mhm.
where our desire is to keep temples open and to have as many as possible participate.
Mhm.
I only think that's funny because if they're saying masks are required for two reasons: one, because of the elderly, and two, our desire is to keep temples open and have as many as possible be able to participate.
Uh-huh.
Good. I'm just curious why does that logic not apply
To
to
church
our
meetings.
sacrament meetings? Do they not also want as many as possible? I get it. Like you can't zoom in an endowment session. I get that. Okay, so that's fine. But I still kind of feel like, isn't there a bit of a disconnect here? Like we don't care. Is it not essential to keep our meeting houses open? Is it not essential to
Oh,
let
you're reading between the
investigators
lines, so
come?
we don't really need to go to our meetings on Sunday. That's not
Oh,
what
that's the other thing. Are they saying it's not
you know.
essential that I attend? Like,
Side note to that. I so we had state conference a couple Sundays ago. Hopefully no one from my state presidency listens to this. But
I hope so too.
some of us discovered that our state conference is streamed on YouTube, which is probably the worst thing you could ever find out if you're me and you kind of grew up thinking state conference was like one of those like optional meetings. It's just how it was in my house. It wasn't until I was adult I was like, wait, people go to state conference? Okay. And so then to find out like, wait, I can just go on YouTube and look up my state conference and it's just there and I can be in my pajamas and not be fighting people for seats with no masks in this huge building. And yeah, that was a good find.
While you've been talking, I'm YouTubing here. You don't have to out your exact stake. You can tell me
Maybe
if it
it's only
rhymes.
temporary, but the adult session and the general session were both on YouTube, and I just watched it from my couch in my
Was
pajamas.
it over the weekend of January 22nd and 23rd?
Um, no, no, it was February 12th,
Oh,
February 13th. It was,
okay. Well,
it
this
was,
is
it was just
somewhere else.
last Sunday. Yeah.
I found some steak called the Glines steak. I don't know where that is. Is that even
Mm,
in Colorado?
no,
Oh man.
but I mean, that was just a I was really grateful to my friend that sent me that link. And then well, she sent me a link and then she's like, it's just on YouTube. You can just search it. So I did.
And that's all you needed.
Anyway, now anyone who's in the in my stake, now you know. You're
Oh
welcome.
man. What can I say except you're welcome? It's all Disney all the time. Anyways,
Oh
that's cool. All
man.
right, what else we got? What else we got?
What else we got? Okay, well the Mormon tab oh, not the Mormon tab, the
How dare
choir.
you?
I'm
And
sorry.
you,
I'm sorry.
A BYU
I
adjacent professional.
I'm gonna explain why I said that in a minute. Okay, it's in the family. The Tabernacle Choir has announced 4 new goals for the choir, which I
Yeah,
thought was interesting. See, I am a Mormon Tabernacle Choir family. I come from a Tabernacle Choir family. My grandparents, my paternal grandparents, were both in the choir for years and years, and they traveled with the choir and they loved it. And then my aunt, my dad's sister, was in the choir as well. So, um,
you go back.
yeah,
This is legit.
yeah. So I guess eventually I have to move to Utah and be in the choir. But yeah, but 4 new goals. The first was to increase their or expand their digital audience, or basically increase their social media presence, as everyone is doing these days. Um, and it says they currently have a social media reach of hundreds of thousands of subscribers, which that's
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 pretty
pretty good.
good.
That's quite an influence.
It's pretty good, but you feel like they're so famous they could have more, right?
Exactly, exactly. So it says they're assembling a group of experts inside and outside the church to discuss how to achieve this goal.
Well, what I love here is they're also talking about they want to attract other audiences, and they say they're going to be moving from CDs and DVDs to streaming
Right.
on social media and evolving with technology.
Yeah.
I'm just for one, I love that any statements like we're going to move away from CDs. I'm like, guys, that was like 15 years ago. But
No,
yes,
I can't. I don't have a CD player in my car.
but
Yeah.
yeah, right. Which is just funny because they have like a Spotify station. They've got like it's not like they're not on streaming. So I don't know what exactly they're getting at here. I know you can still
Right.
buy those Tab Cats DVDs at Deseret Book. That's the dream. But
Yeah, so
church
I
is a
am
little bit.
curious because I don't even like know. I mean, I can't say that. Like, do they have an Instagram? I don't follow them.
They do have an Instagram. And they
Well, I
post to
need
stories.
to.
They do stuff. Yeah, I mean,
And
it's
they're
I
called.
think the
It's
hard thing
called
is
at Tabcats.
I don't think it's at Tab Cats. They
I,
don't like
I
actually.
wish
They've
it was.
I will say their social media managers have a good sense of humor about Tab Cats because they've retweeted and responded to a number of our tweets when we at them and we've mentioned Tab Cats and they've got a
Oh,
good sense.
okay.
I
Oh,
appreciate
it's the Tabernacle Choir.
just like the church news, yes, the one and only. Um,
That's
yeah, I think that's kind
cool.
of
I
funny.
wish it would be like the real Tabernacle.
The real, that's like ours. Ours has always been the real twim
Uh-huh.
for like a very long time. It has
Yeah.
been the real twim.
No, okay.
Bless
I
them.
just followed them, so I'm helping them with their goals.
See, look what you're doing. I just don't know what. Yeah, I love the group of experts. I don't know what that's going
Yeah,
to mean.
I know. Is it like TikTokers? They're like,
I
okay,
really want
here's what you got to do.
they're gonna be delightfully a couple years behind. They're gonna have like images of women in those robes flossing on TikTok.
They'll be like,
Just
okay, you got to learn this dance.
I'm just saying,
Oh man.
what?
Okay, so that was one of the goals. The
Okay,
second
sorry.
goal was the choir wants to magnify its role as a missionary tool, which hey, music is a great missionary tool. I mean, I've always thought that there are, some people get or feel the spirit way more through music than any
Yeah.
other way.
Yeah.
And so for sure, I think they should focus on that. It's a great resource for the gospel in that way, or the church. Um, and so yeah, so interesting to see how they're planning on doing that. And then the third objective is they want to be more reflective of the church's worldwide nature. President Levitt said an important part of this objective is for the choir to reflect the nature of the church's global membership. So, curious to see how they're going to achieve that goal, because that would kind of seem to indicate that they wanted to have a more diverse choir, or maybe at least guest artists, or I don't know.
Yeah. This is the one that, of course, has rubbed some people on social
Mm.
media, as we noted in our article about it. Like I saw one commenter even said, objective number 3 is to apply affirmative action and critical race theory to the selection of choir members. The second part of that is great because I don't know how you apply critical race theory when you're choosing choir members. That doesn't even make sense. That's not a thing you apply. It's just an academic pursuit. But I wonder what this will be too. I mean, obviously, like this isn't Utah's fault. I get it. Like you need to be within 100 miles of the Tabernacle to be in the choir. All your talent level and all that stuff is equally important. You know, they are rigorous with auditions for the Tabernacle choir. You
Mm-hmm.
don't just get into it willy nilly. It definitely takes a lot of talent. You have to be able to sight read a lot of
Mm-hmm.
complex music pretty well to be able to be in the Tabernacle choir, and that's why they sound so great.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be able to do that and live within 100 miles of the Tabernacle so you can go to rehearsals.
I just checked the map, and I am about 400 miles outside.
Sorry.
Oh,
You know, the only
wild.
non-Utah. Let's see. Looking at this at their map, the only non-Utahns who could go is
No, there,
basically if
there's Wyoming. You can be
there's a
in
little
Evanston.
if you're in Evanston or if you're in like
Oh,
very southern
southern
Idaho,
Idaho.
you could get in on some of that too.
Almost Nevada. So close.
Wendover doesn't make it for many reasons, many reasons.
Many reasons.
Um, but I
Yeah,
totally get that a choir has to function and you need people to be able to come to
you have to
rehearsal, and
go to
that's fine.
rehearsal.
But because of that, the base feeding the choir is extremely white, and it simply is not reflective of the church overall and the church's demographics, right? And so I don't think this
Okay.
is the church trying to. The churches, and they have not said anything like, "So what we're going to do is like turn away a perfectly qualified white person so that we can bring in a less qualified minority." They haven't said that. I'm just curious what they're going to do.
Okay.
Um,
Here's the thing, though.
what they're going to do to affect this, to bring in more diversity.
Here's the thing, though. I mean, these days, I mean, you can do most things over technology, and
True.
having being familiar with the performing world, I think there would be a way to send, I mean, people, you could have individuals that lived across the country receive their music, work on their music, do some Zoom sessions, and then a week before the conference, fly out to Salt Lake and have multiple, rigorous rehearsals, and then do the performance. Have like an outreach choir member.
Yeah, like that could
It's
be fun.
totally feasible.
I want it to go even farther. I want us to invest church resources, whether that's from our massive slush fund, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Um, I would even chip in. I would chip in on my tithing slip to support this. I
Yeah.
think it'd be cool if they could bring in members from around the world on like a work study type thing
Oh.
for like 12-month stints. But the church would
Ooh,
have to put them up in housing. It'd have to be a whole thing, right? This would be an
that's
expensive
even
endeavor.
better.
But how cool would that be?
So
And
cool.
for better and worse, it would allow saints from elsewhere to also like be in Utah and see what the church is like at its nucleus, for a stretch of
Well,
time.
yeah,
That could be
also,
interesting too.
it's a calling, right? So you can it could be couldn't it be like a mission? Couldn't they have
And that's the other one I've wondered
young
about. Yeah.
people from other countries, I mean, I don't know. It would just be fun, I think, to see all ages. I mean, if that was your whole mission, and you could also, work at Temple Square or whatever, but then you're in the choir and you have an audition, and
And that would be fascinating because the other thing, the age requirement for the Tab Cats is you have to be between 25 and 55 years of age to
oh.
join it. So they would have to revise that. I love the idea of how we do different types of missions nowadays. They've
Uh-huh.
tried to, because now they say even when you turn in your papers, you
Yeah.
don't say like, oh, well, if you have like a
Yeah.
disability or something like that, you don't fill out different papers. Like everyone applies to be a missionary and
Yeah.
you just send it in, and what they call you to do is now what could be different. You could be a service missionary,
Yeah.
you could be a proselytizing missionary, and the idea is to take away a lot of the stigma from the
Yeah.
what used to be thought of as like, lesser missions, quote unquote, or what have
I
you.
if there was
Why
a
not?
singing and performing mission, I mean, I would fight everyone to the
Yeah,
front
why
of the
not do it? That'd be
line. I
amazing.
would do it.
Actually, I mean, I know that becomes very specific because it's like, all right, we've got this wonderful we've got this wonderful sister who wants to go on a mission who lives in Uruguay,
Yeah.
and we think she's Tab Cat's material. We think we can call her to this, right? Like that gets hard, but I
Yeah.
think that'd be cool. It'd be neat.
No, I think that'd be great, and I hope someone is listening. They should do that.
I just can't. I mean, obviously, all these things are goals they have. They haven't fleshed out
I know, we don't
how
know the
they're going to do
plans,
that.
right?
Yeah,
Right? But
we don't know
that
the plans,
there's
but
definitely some potential for some
and this
cool
has the
stuff.
first presidency's support. By the way, we want to be clear. They were
That's
clear
great.
about that. Like they've pitched this to the leaders, and they're like, "Awesome, hit it."
I like it. And then let's see, the last goal was to increase worldwide visibility. Which is funny because I just always assume everyone has heard of the choir, but maybe not. I mean, I'm sure there's still places they haven't gone to or touched, but I mean, that would imply they would want to travel more, but
Hmm.
they did cancel their tour for this year.
Yeah, the
They
Heritage Tour is over.
Yeah, they just announced that.
They postponed it twice
Yeah.
already, and now they just said it's over.
Yeah, which yeah, I mentioned my grandparents are in it. I mean, that's all I remember is them just talking about all the awesome trips they took and all the like souvenirs that they brought home, and they would just talk on and on about how much they loved all these countries they visited. So I for sure was like, I think they're in it for the trips. Which it was. They made it look pretty good.
I'm curious
So
about
I'm sad for the members who have had it canceled 3 years in a row.
the funding mechanism then.
Yeah.
How when they go on? Do they fundraise? Does the church just comp it? Like, I mean, I wonder how they do that.
I don't
I
know.
have no idea.
I'm gonna ask my aunt about that.
And one thing that is a benefit of having it all be very Utah based is culturally, it's probably less of an issue if you tell your boss, like, hey, I'm in the Tabernacle Choir and we need to go tour Europe for a couple of weeks. And like, because a lot of those things like that, it's not everyone has tons of time off. I have to imagine if you have sympathetic employers who get church culture a bit more, it might make things like that easier to carve out special
Mhm.
allowances to do certain things like that.
Right,
I would
right.
guess. I mean,
Yeah,
whether that's like favoritism towards members of the church versus other random
yeah,
non Latter Day Saint employees who might also have pursuits. Okay, I get that, but
yeah.
yeah, it could be fun. Yeah, sad they canceled the Heritage Tour. That was going to be cool. They were going to tour around famous locales relevant to the church's European pioneer days,
Mm,
but now it's all for naught. Very sad.
that is sad. Maybe next year, guys. Next year.
Now, Haley, I know your kids are out of the key demo at this point, but
Yes.
we had the friend to friend broadcast over the weekend. I watched it with my kids.
Oh, yeah. How was it?
Uh, I love these things. I'm glad they did another one. And my understanding is they're going to have 3 of them this year, which is great. I like them announcing some
Great.
regularity with it because the first one they did was this really cool thing. And my initial
Mhm.
reaction was like, where has this been during COVID? Like, this is great. They should
Oh,
be doing this a lot.
yeah.
For those unfamiliar, it's basically a broadcast designed specifically for primary age kids. They send out. You can watch it whenever after
That's
the
so great.
fact.
And kids are actually on it, right? Like,
Kids basically host it. Yeah, they
yeah, I
talk to it
love
with
that.
the camera.
Yeah.
I, and I just I've loved it. I think it's a great undertaking. This new one was shorter than the last, if
Mhm.
I am not mistaken, just from watching. Because I feel like it was nearly an hour long before, but this was like
Mhm.
25 minutes. And they meet with members of the primary general presidency, and they have cute vignettes and different skills and things and stories, and it all varies. So that was cool in and of itself.
Yeah.
But what was really interesting about this one is it will actually be broadcast with different hosts in different languages. So
Mm.
traditionally, like a lot of things in the church, created in English and then dubbed or subtitled into
Yeah.
other languages.
Yeah.
In this case, though, I bet you cannot possibly guess what the other 2 languages would be. Uh,
Oh, Spanish.
oh yeah,
Gonna say, um, no, Portuguese, right?
yeah, those are the 2. So
I couldn't think of any other exciting
those are the big ones.
languages.
It's the only 3 languages in they've got the full quad in all 4 of those. You can actually get a quad in Spanish and Portuguese as well now.
Oh.
in English, and that's it. The quad was reserved just for English for a very long time because the church did not produce its own cut of the Bible until recent history
Oh, okay.
in the other languages. So, anyways, this is cool though. They didn't dub it;
Yeah.
they actually brought in native speaking. There was this explorer element. This friend to friend talked about
Yeah.
basically three things you make. You're baptized, gift of the Holy Ghost, and like what the sacrament means, and kind of explaining that. And they framed it like you were sort of going camping, like exploring through the woods
Oh,
and
that's so
coming upon
cute.
different things. But I just think it's great that they did this in all three, the whole broadcast,
Yeah.
completely in other languages. I want to find them in the other broadcasts because it's one thing to have the Explorer hosts and the other
Mhm.
kid hosts speak their language.
Yeah.
I don't know what they did with the primary general presidency members, if they let them,
Oh.
if they spoke in the tongue or
Mm.
what they did. I'm curious about that. And maybe that speaks to their capabilities. I noticed the president of the primary was the only one not to appear in person, only via a video. And I was the whole time I was like, is this like because of COVID stuff? Like the president
Yeah.
would be the one you'd think it would be there, or
Yeah.
maybe she had to record her remarks
Yeah.
in different languages, and it was easier to do that off site. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, but
Yeah. No, that's great. I love that they're incorporating the other languages, but I also love it from the standpoint of anytime that, the church seems to be supporting like artistic endeavors and giving people jobs and to do creative things and, produce these things, I think is great.
yeah, the original one was
Champion the arts.
40 to champion the arts. I don't think if that's how the church is looking at it as champion the arts, but I'm with you in spirit. I just don't know if that's their mentality around it.
Well, I will watch it and be the judge of
No, it was
myself.
good. It was good. I love that they do these, and I hope they'll keep them up. COVID or no COVID, I think friend to friend is great. Kids need this.
Yeah,
Useful.
no, that's awesome. That's great. But I mean, kids, they can relate to it and it's more, exciting than maybe going to state conference and listening to a
State
talk.
conference, I maintain, is the just like the most needed to be remote of all church meetings.
Yeah. It's
It is a
just
nightmare with
it's just
children,
not for children. It is
and
not for children.
it's just I feel like it is. I feel like it's more impactful if you can just do a stream of it forever, just forever and ever and ever.
And you can at my stake. But you didn't hear that from me. Oh no, please don't take it away if anyone's listening.
I'm gonna find it. I'm going to embed your state conference. I at least know the city you live in, and that should be enough. I can get to the bottom of this, Haley. It's gonna be good.
Oh man.
Real quick, couple random ones to mention here before we go.
Mhm.
President Nelson inspected the roof of the Salt Lake Temple, and I love the LDS Living headline. It's just why 97-year-old President Nelson went up scaffolding to inspect the Salt Lake Temple roof. I mean, first of all, it's because he's President Nelson. And he doesn't mess around. This is
Right.
President Nelson, right? He's like, yeah, I'm going up there.
Yeah.
The whole, and so that's what's going to happen. They
Don't tell
talked
me
about this
what
on
to
the.
do.
So I love this quote though from Brent Roberts, who's the managing director of Church's Special Projects. I'm not sure any prophet has ever done that before or been that high before.
Okay.
Like, did he kind of walked into that one knowing that some people would be like, yeah,
Oh my gosh.
no president of the church, no prophet's ever been that high before, have they?
Well, that could be.
But I like that President Nelson cares so much about the nitty gritty of the temple. He says he asked specific questions about the trusses, all these, like he wanted to go up there and really see it. So
That's
good for you.
great.
Good for you, President Nelson.
Well,
I can
no, that's
agree.
good. I mean, I'm terrified of heights, so I would be like, "No, thanks, that's a hard pass. Somebody else go up there." So, I'm very impressed.
So when you see like on Instagram pictures of people like looming on a little rock over a massive
Yeah,
gorge in like
no.
Norway, you're just like, no, 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 no,
No,
no, no,
or
no,
there's
no.
this new thing in New York City where you can like climb the top. You're like basically scaling a skyscraper like out in the wind. Why? Why would I
Are
want to
those the
do
ones where
that?
like I know there's one at the CN Tower in Toronto where they latch you
Yeah.
in and you at the very top and you like lean out
Yes.
like that kind of thing. Yeah,
But why?
I would never do it.
No.
And that does not appeal to me at
I'm
all. Or
not
like there's
doing
that
that.
ride at the Stratosphere in Vegas where all it does is tilt towards the ground and just
Oh,
like goes forward and then stops. And I'm like, dude, if the brakes fail on this thing,
no. And
it's
that's all
over.
I think about in any of those situations. So yeah, no, that's no thanks. So, um, well, I guess one thing we didn't talk about is this past week was the candy bomber. passed away. You know, the candy bomber?
Yeah, Gail
Gail.
Halverson.
Yeah. Um, the first time I ever heard of him was when he was in Meet the Mormons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was big on that.
And I thought it was such a charming story about how he, back in his days when he was in the, or when he was serving in the Air Force, the kids in Germany, he would parachute candy down to them after he'd done his, or taken his other cargo, done his other drops. And he was known for that. And I thought that was, anyway, he lived in Provo, and he was 101 years old, and he passed away.
What a cool guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the Berlin. This is all, he started this during the Berlin airlift back in the late 40s. Um, just so cool. And I
Hmm.
love that this is what he wasn't limited to that. He got famous for that, but
Hmm.
he engaged in humanitarian work,
Yeah.
um, in relief efforts with candy and toy drops
Uh-huh.
across America, and in Bosnia, Albania, Kosovo, Japan, Guam, Iraq, the Micronesian
Uh-huh.
islands. Like, this man,
Yeah.
he got it. He used his skills and his talents and the things he
Hmm.
was blessed with to impact the lives of others for better, even if it seems like, almost silly, like it's a bunch of candy for
Yeah.
kids. No, that's awesome. I
Well,
mean, like, for
yeah,
these Berlin kids,
and
it
it
was
made an
huge.
impact. Like he, I mean, these kids like remembered him and like talked about it. And I think one lady wrote a book about it, children's book. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, very good.
The way I found out about it actually was Elder Uchtdorf's Instagram. He posted a picture of himself with Gail, and then you
Oh,
know
and
how you
Harrison
put like
Ford?
multiple, yeah, and then Harrison
Yeah, that
Ford, and
one?
I was
Yeah, I
like,
saw that.
nice flex, Elder Uchtdorf. He's like, oh, so sad to lose my friend, the candy bomber, and here's Harrison Ford, and then swipe right for Han Solo. I was like, all right, I see you.
I, oh, man. Um, I only hope he ribbed him a little bit, like, Harrison Ford being like, "Hey, I've never crashed my plane."
I hope so.
Just saying.
I know. So was it just some like cool guy pilot conference or something?
They're about the same age too. Like, I think
Really?
unfortunately, like, yeah, Harrison Ford's like, yeah,
No
Harrison Ford's like,
way.
I think they're within like 1 or 2 years of each other. Yeah.
Oh, that's wild.
Never forget, Harrison Ford is much older than we think. He was already like
I
40 when he made Star Wars. So
How old when he made Star Wars? 40?
he was almost 40 or something. I mean, well, what, that's what,
Oh,
77?
that's
What's it been?
wild.
It's been 45 years since
I know.
Star
So I
Wars. So
wonder how old he was
I
like
don't
when
know.
he did like Fugitive. Probably.
Well, we could do some simple math here
It's more fun to sit here and wonder.
and help our listeners. If you figure out how old Harrison Ford was when he made The
If
Fugitive,
somebody knows a way to
let
figure
us
out
know.
how old he is, you'll get some
Please let us know.
candy. But not
We
from the
will.
candy bomber, sorry.
No, what I'm going to mail you is an envelope full of Fun Dip powder,
It's probably
and
not good to send that in the
and
mail.
let the postal service do with that what they will.
Okay,
I just want-
Harrison Ford is 79 years old.
Oh yeah, Fugitive was what, 93,
Wow.
so 29 years ago. So he was only he was late 40s then when he made The
Well,
Fugitive, right? Or is that late 50s?
now I have to look up. Okay, Elder Uchtdorf is 81, so they are super close. Wow.
This is dynamite.
Contemporaries. We came full circle.
I'm just going to name this episode Contemporaries and put a picture of those two on the artwork for the episode, and make no sense for anybody. Resurrect the days. Well, it's been a
Oh
good week. All
man.
right, folks. Well, we've done it. Please go to thisweekinmormons.com and follow us on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all those good places where we have more followers than the Tabernacle Choir. It's not true, but I want to believe it is.
They have
Uh,
137,000
I
plus me.
I don't have that. I don't
Just
have
make
that.
your
Maybe
goals. Make your 4 goals known.
just make my goals. Everyone, our goal is to beat the Tabernacle Choir in number of followers. Then I will be a true
Make it
influencer.
happen.
Thanks again to our Patreon supporters. Hey, $3 a month helps us keep this thing going. So please go to patreon.com/thisweekinmormons and make your donation there. And then I get to claim it on my taxes. And it actually hurts me. So if you want to give me pain, that's another way to do it, because it's not tax deductible. So Thanks to all of you who do that. Haley, thanks so much for being here. I love having you on. Appreciate your time.
So much fun. Always just a pleasure.
Always a delight. And until then, everybody, we hope you have a great week. We'll be back again next week to do more of this. And it's almost time to run up for conference season. So we're excited about that. So for Haley, I'm Jeff. This has been This Week in Mormons.
Uh,
Have a good one. Bye bye.
Bye.